Hey, welcome to Menace Armament. We are doing our first episode and we're going to talk about DMR builds. But first, as you can see, we got a new face. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Donnie, Marine veteran, law enforcement vet, local here to this area in Pocatello. That's our stream right there. And I've got a little bit of experience with defensive shooting. Played with DMRs quite a bit, typically in your 308 caliber or 7.62 by 51 if you're military type, like them crayons like me. Yeah.
All right. Well, before we get too far into it, we got to talk about someone that's been sponsoring us getting into the gun industry and everything else, especially after our military background and everything like that. And that's Bishop's Gun Barn. Let me pull that up real quick. But sorry, I'm also figuring out how to do all this. There we go. All right, this is actually a website for Bishop Guns Barn, but if it wasn't for the gun barn here in Pocatello, Idaho, I wouldn't have had much of a start. They gave me a start after I graduated with SDI. And that also goes with Donnie as well. What I'm showing right now is their website. Here you can get all kinds of things from guns to all the way to tents and hatchets and all kinds of survival things. So make sure you take the time, go check them out at Bishop's Gun Barn. Let's see here. We'll get back to us here as I figure out all this stuff. This is our episode 1, so first time going live and learning the computer stuff, but it's a work in progress, let me tell you. So today we're going to talk about DMR builds, like we kind of mentioned before. In front of you, I've got two of our ARs, or this one's mine. This is the first AR I ever built, and it's kind of turned into a DMR type style build. A little bit longer barrel, big old muzzle brake on it, 1:8. So I don't know if I would call it really a DMR build, but we'll get into what I would probably do different now. And then to the other side is one I actually built through Bishop, and that one was for the wife. As you can see, the zombie green, she wanted that in there. But it's got more of a red dot with backup iron sights. It is more of an all-purpose. So there is so many different ways you can go with these builds. And AR-15, then you go into AR-10s and pretty much start the whole conversation over again. So to get us started, got to have our Coke. That's because that's what it is. But we're going to start with the different calibers, because you kind of, that's always the first thing you wonder, like, all right, if I'm going to do a build, what caliber should I use? And of course, the first one right off the top, we're talking about AR-15s here, not AR-10s, just throwing that out there. That's, or LR-308 for the ones that are going to point that out to me on the civilian world. 5.56 NATO. It is a good round. It's a high-powered 22, so it's not like it's a hit-hard type round, but you can find it everywhere. So if you're wanting to do something, kind of trying to sell this one, I struggle with it on this on a DMR side. I mean, when you're doing a marksman type rifle, I guess maybe we should go into that first. Like,
yeah, I mean,
what is a DMR?
Typically, your DMR is going to be something that you can engage effectively out to 400 to 800 yards consistently.
I was thinking 5. Yeah. That's probably about the best way to put it. I got to get the Marine perspective versus Army. So when it comes to like the 5.56, for example, past that 300 yard area, stuff of that nature, I mean, in all reality, even 100 yards, it's not a knockdown. It is kind of, yes, it is accurate and it's great. But at the same time, let's say depending on what you want to do the build, or what are you using it for? If I'm going out for zombie apocalypse and like the end of the times, end of the world. Well, what's the one round you can find everywhere and keep going with? The 5.56, and that's where it does great. I'm not going to kill a zombie at 800, 900. I might hit it, and it might yell at me. And that's about all that's going to happen. Like, what the hell was that? Yes. Or deer or something. But whatever you're using it for. But for me, when I think of the DMR, I think the competitive side probably now because of working and building them for competitors and things of the nature. So I automatically kind of go that route. And at the same time, I'm not just trying to kill the paper target at 800 yards. I actually want to do some damage.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where you see 5.56 fall off at those longer ranges. You know, you start to get issues with tumbling and a lot of different other factors that come into play, and you know, your wind kind of likes to push that round a lot at those longer ranges too, to where it's not necessarily the most effective round at long distance, and that's kind of, I think, probably why we're playing with a lot of these other calibers that we're looking at today.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and so 5.56 I think is a great all around AR if you're going to build in that AR-15 for home defense and that all time get in the dirt. Hopefully you can't hear my dog barking in the background. But if you can, it's perfect for the purpose that it sets. Like I do think it's good. You can carry a lot of ammo because it's light. Granted, you're going to use more of it depending on the situation you're in compared to maybe some other rounds that we're going to talk about. But it's very, it is a good round. Like if you're going to build your very first AR-15 for use for everything, I think go with it. Beyond that, there's so much better stuff out there now.
Absolutely. That's what I've got sitting in my truck now as it is, like my own personal rifles.
Both of these.
5.56 too. I actually haven't shot any of these rounds we're going to talk about today, but I kind of want to.
That's kind of my problem is doing the research and building this stuff for other people, and yay, I got to go test fire it.
Yep.
That's as far as I got. So I'm in the same boat. I'm looking at that next build for myself, and who knows, maybe somebody will contact us there at the Bishop Gun Barn, and we can build something. Speaking of, he does actually work at Bishop Gun Barn with me. Not that this shirt might have given it away or not, that I work there as well. But so because of them, we get to do this stuff, and that's why we're doing it. So 5.56, yeah, for your first build, yes. DMR, no.
Yeah, probably not.
All right, let's get into some of these other rounds real quick. Sorry, I'm trying to pull up some stuff that I do have set up to the side here on the big screen, and I'll show you. A round that seems to be making a lot rounds lately, like a lot more people are getting interested in it in the competition world because of what it can do, is the 6 Arc. Advanced research cartridge made by, I believe it was Hornady. Great round. I have built an AR in this and got to shoot it. Recoils more than a 5.56, but not by much. It is a really good round. When I was going through my research, my personal opinion, a bolt gun in it, excellent. Like if you want to reach out well past 1,000 yards with a small recoiled round, you can do it. Like we're talking right around anywhere from about 2,400 feet per second. I know you can break with the lighter rounds up to the 3,000, 31. They're dropping off a lot faster. I think that 25 area, the 100 grain area, like 103 grain, I think, believe. Is there ELD match? I want to say, not Precision Hunter. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes here. Hornady match, and it's 108 grain is one of them. And that's one I have shot. Very accurate round. You're sub MOA at 100 yards, which that's a piece of cake. Not a problem whatsoever. Now, the only issue I see in the AR world, because it was supposed to be designed for AR, it kind of has the same issue as some of these other rounds where they're trying to fit more powder in there. It is a 6mm, bigger than that 5.56, 223, which is a 0.244 round. You have a bigger round moving faster, it's going to do better. Like wind doesn't affect it as much, but that fat butt on it. See if I can find a picture of it. I had one somewhere here, but we'll have to take a closer look at it here soon. That's a 6 max, and we'll talk about that one later. But with that fat butt, it kind of has the same issue as the 6.5 Grendel and a few of these other 6 Dasher, which is a Wildcat. I know that's the most popular. 6 Arc is to compete, but yet be on the shelf. Feeding it into an AR-15, the one I built, we really didn't have too many issues. I did end up having to, because kind of scraping some and every once in a while jamming. I did have to work on the feed ramp area a little bit, things of that nature. Kind of used to it with our custom calibers like the 475 Magnum, things like that. So nothing new, but there for that at-home builder who wants to build his own AR-15, which the AR-15 is well known, you can build it yourself. And I always recommend you do. You should know your firearm through and through, so that's the best way to do it. But there can be jamming issues, especially as you're shooting them maybe a little bit quicker, things of that nature. I'm going to check the feed.
Yeah.
That's got an error of some sort. Sorry to interrupt there, but so that's the only problem I have. There we go. With the 6 Arc, it is again a very good round, but there's only one company making the ammo. Run into this a lot as we go through this list. It's not very popular out there overall, or they haven't released it, which I wish companies would, but they're all in the money making business. So that's about the best point to make on that one. I would build a 6 Arc. I've been wanting to, probably until we were going to do this episode, and I started looking more into different things and realized that maybe 6 Arc isn't the best way to go, in my opinion. There are some of these rounds in it. That's the hardest part, is that's the start point. Like, what do you want to build?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I was at with the 224 Valkyrie coming into this. You know, I was like, I watched that one video that we had pulled up here not too long ago, and I was like, yeah, you know, and they made a really hell of a trailer here, and I was all on board for it. But you know, looking at some of the statistics and things like that, it really isn't that much different from a 223 round. And the other factor with it too is that 224 Valkyrie actually is pretty freaking new. They just released in 2017, I believe it was, from the info that I was looking up. But you know, they're out there for sure, and they're definitely taking the market by storm. And you know, there's a lot of popularity that's seemed to have sprouted up over the last couple of years with them, but it's not quite as much as some of these other calibers, like your 6.5 Grendel, you know, which has been around since 2004. That one was made by Alexander Arms Company, I believe. They make a lot of really popular ones out there. I'm certain that many of our viewers have probably heard of them before, but you know, and that one also
watch the video if you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's pull it up.
Let's see here.
They said it couldn't be done. The world's only MSR-15 cartridge to exceed supersonic velocity beyond 1,300 yards. Delivering controlled recoil for exacting accuracy. The all-new 224 Valkyrie from Federal Premium. Innovation to break boundaries. Learn more at federalpremium.com.
That's not a too bad of a video. Since I'm on this website, like if you want to find out more info, this is a good site. That was something we ran into, the federalpremium.com site. Finding info on this one was pretty tricky in a lot of ways. All right. Now you're back to us. Go ahead. Wait, you weren't. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, not at all. But yeah, that, I mean, you know, like I said, they made a hell of a trailer, and I was kind of like, yeah, woohoo! But then I started looking into it, and you know, it's not as common to come across as like your 6.5 Grendelets, and that's a little bit of a heavier bullet with pretty similar statistics. You know, that 224 Valkyrie is boasting that it stays supersonic over 1,300 yards, when you know, your 6.5 Valkyrie is boasting about 12, and you get a little bit more energy upon impact with that 6.5 Grendel just because it's a bigger bullet. Um, and they're running it out of a 7.62 by 39 case, so it's just about everywhere and stupid easy to reload for, especially if you're in that world. And that one would be one that's pretty easy to come across on ammo as well, and it's been out there since 2004, so it's pretty well everywhere. At least on the online world, might have a little bit more trouble getting into it, you know, in store, having it in stock right here, right now. But that's kind of a lot of these calibers that I think we're talking about today with the AR-15. That's not a standard 5.56.
Okay. All right. So 6 arc. Would you do a DMR build in it?
I mean, there's very few things that I wouldn't do a DMR build in, but
that's a good point.
the best gun in the world is the one you
Give
shoot.
me a reason to build it, and I will. Which
Yeah.
could be, please.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
Yeah. Don't have to twist my arm too hard on those.
I think that one I would build the competition 6 arc rifle though, like
Oh, yeah.
a bolt action or something like that. I think that's the route I'd probably go with the 6 arc more than anything. The AR is fun. We have actually built one. I think I have another one in the pipe works right now to build for somebody. And you're not going to be wrong. Like any of these rounds in all reality. Then again, if you told me you built a DMR in 5.56, that might be one I'd tell you you're wrong.
Yeah, I might give
Because
you a little
I
bit of
look
pushback
at
on that.
500 to 800 yards. I'm not talking about killing that deer at 1,000 plus, but I am gonna question the 5.56.
Well,
I'm kind of at the point where I question the 5.56 all the time overall, but I still think it should be your first build. It's the simplest, best way to get into it. Reliable. I mean, the gun was designed for it.
And that's kind of the idea behind a DMR to begin with anyway, is you got to have a little bit more punching power than that standard 5.56 does as is, because you start to look into things from what the DMRs are actually designated to do, which is your designated marksman rifle.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be looking at potentially taking out a threat that's hiding behind cover. You're going to be looking at things that are a little bit more violent in that kind of field or line of work, to where your target may be hiding behind a small wall or maybe a tree or things of that nature, and you kind of want to have something that can lay down suppressive fire accurately and consistently enough, but also have that knockdown power to really keep somebody's head down, if not completely eliminate the threat altogether.
Oh, yeah.
Or end of the world situation, you're out hunting type deal, same kind of concept still carries over.
I agree. All right, I think we beat that bush. Next one to talk about, this one's been around a little bit longer, the 6.5 Grendel. So that's a really good round. I do like the Grendel. I was kind of looked up some stuff a little bit earlier on it, and you're getting a lot heavier bullet. You're getting that 6.5 like the Creedmoors and all that, compared to the 6. So you have a little bit heavier weight, and it's still moving pretty good. But again, it's still another round that kind of has that fat butt, which on the feeding side,
feeding is.
You're gonna run into here. We'll pull this up here so you can see what I'm looking at. But so now you have the 6 arc in a way, but a bigger round, which maybe helps the feeding because it's a little bit wider, not much.
That's the one that's sitting in the AK-47 casing.
Yeah,
typically.
Yeah, that's right. And then we'll scroll up here, and you can see some of these velocities. That was another thing when we talked about the 224 Valkyrie. The video talks about being supersonic past a certain amount, 1,300 yards. when you're looking at their velocities, I don't know where they're getting it from. And maybe it's a certain round only that can actually do that. But most of them, like this one, 500 yards, where it's 17. I mean, once you start hitting 1,100 feet per second, you're going, you're getting really close to that mark where you're not anymore. And this instabilities, things of that nature, where this round is going pretty good. And maybe I'm mistaken. I mean, we see a lot of rounds every day, especially when we're working.
Oh yeah.
And people asking us questions and throwing out their 2 cents. And I mean, if you've ever been in a gun shop, you know that everybody's got an opinion. And no matter what your opinion is, it's probably wrong depending on the person that walked through the door. So, but I do like the knockdown power of the 6.5 over any of the 6s, no matter which 6 we're talking about. But again, it's a small platform, which means you can't get quite as much oomph behind it. And you could fix the feeding issues. We were able to fix it with the 6R. It didn't take very long. You just got to know what you're doing. So it's
or fake it till you make it.
Exactly. Yeah. Which we won't ever admit that. But it is a really good round too. And I've struggled with the 6.5 Grendel. It is easier to get. Like you can find it pretty easy. I mean, anytime we ever looked it up, or we've even ordered some in the past, things like that, you have options. And that's a very big bonus to that compared to like 6R. You have a Hornady. They have like, 4 options, something like that. And you're going to pay a little bit more because of that. I wouldn't say it has as much as 5.56 when it comes to people making it, but there is something to be said in that area.
One of the things I did like about it a lot too is, and this is kind of a hot take, but I already kind of like that 6.5 Creedmoor round as it is.
Yeah.
And, and there's a lot of opinions out there about that round, and it doesn't have as much umph behind it that I'd like to see either, especially comparing it to something like a 6.5 PRC or even some of those new cartridges out there, but that's a whole nother animal.
Mm-hmm.
But it does use that 6.5 Creedmoor bullet, and then it kind of takes and makes a little Frankenstein monster with that AK cartridge, and very, very interesting round. I've really kind of been impressed with that one. I might actually consider doing my next AR in that caliber, or even taking and changing out the barrel and the action on what I've got currently, because I was sitting there looking at it, I was like, ooh, that might be a really good option. I might be sold on that one, especially when I was comparing it against the 224 Valkyrie, and it just, I don't know, lots of hot opinions out there on all these cartridges.
That's one of my biggest problems, especially working where we do. We're working on everybody else's stuff constantly. Like, this is my only AR-15 that I actually have is the one I built, because I now build them for everybody else.
Yeah.
So I have literally no idea how many I have built now, but that's what makes it hard, because I'm like, ooh, I could do this one. Well, give me a week and I'm going to think of another one. Mm-hmm. And then I don't have the money to keep up with what I would like to do. Let's put it that way.
Or you give it another week and then a whole new thing releases all of a sudden out of nowhere, and you're like, where the hell did this come from?
Exactly. And that's where, like, the 6 Arc is pretty new. Mm-hmm. The 224 Valkyrie we're talking about, it's new. The Grendel's been around for a while. I'm shocked I haven't had more people want to see that one. The Grendel is a good round. It's kind of like trying to bring that 308 power to an AR-15. So it's moving. I mean, it'll stay supersonic past that 1,000, but yeah, you're using a bigger bullet.
Well, and shout out to Jordan Wakely on that one. He was telling me about the 6.5x47 Lapua that's come out there recently too, and we were kind of diving into that little deal last week, and that was a whole nother entirely different animal. And I was like, where the hell did this round even come from? And they're actually pretty interesting little cartridges, but they are Wildcats, and that's why I think we kind of left them off the list on this go around, just because we were trying to avoid getting into cartridges that you have to reload for, you're not going to be able to find all over the place.
If I could pull up
I was going to see if I couldn't pull up that article on my phone here, but good old Snapchat deletes your chats after so long. But
there was something I found because it was something we ran into when, and it might take me a while to find it, so I'm not sure I could, but when BattleBox did a video of our custom caliber that we make in shop, we're the only ones that make it because we designed it and came up with it. Well, the owner did. I just now build them. But 475 Magnum, you'll see videos out there, the biggest, most powerful AR-10. That's from our shop. And constantly throughout the comments, AR-10s only come in 308, nonstop. And I'm like, no. And send a link, like a wiki link type thing or something. And show the list this long. And then you have AR-15s. What colors they come in? The list is even longer. Like,
Yeah.
It is crazy everything that in the AR-15 platform, we're using the same lower and upper. That's the AR-15 part right here that we're talking about. Can actually come in. And beyond that, it's not one of these, it's an AR platform, but it's not an AR-10 or civilian side LR-308, which that does not help the argument whatsoever.
No, it does not.
But AR-15, this type platform, only it comes in this many, and give it a year, there'll be a few more. You know, it's kind of, it's hard. Like you gotta, if you start diving in and start looking at all this stuff, and it gets to the point where it's impossible to keep up with.
Well, especially when all it takes on a lot of these is, pull out your barrel, pull out your action, throw a new one in, and now you got an entirely new caliber that.
Or you end up just take this upper off and putting a new one on top.
That's plug and play, baby.
Yeah, I'm seeing all the blogs. I wasn't prepared to actually show that part, but here's every article talks about here's 6, here's 10, here's 15, here's this, here's that. But yeah, we'll have to look up that. Maybe that'll be another one, is those Wildcats episode or something like that.
Wildcat cartridge.
Because we could talk all night about that one.
There's a million out there.
Well, the next one on the list is actually my favorite that I didn't know about until recent, and it's actually been out, if I remember right, for a little while now. It's the 6 Max. To me, because it gets rid of the big rear end, I guess I'm not a big butt person, but it's kind of is more of a straight cartridge. I wish I would have kind of wrote down my notes, because as I'm talking about it, I kind of forgot what I was going to say, but actually this is a good thing to show. Let's get you over to my TV here. All right, so you have your 5.56. Here's the 6 Max. Notice how it is very straight walled compared to how this has such a sharp shoulder. The 224 Valkyrie actually isn't as bad as the 6 Arc. That's a big butt one right there. But this is based on the 350 Legend, which is another round I hadn't looked too much in for what we're talking about this time. That's why it's not on the list. To me, that kind of reminded me of a smaller version of the 458 SOCOM, or not really a SOCOM, I guess the 450 Bushmaster would be the better example, being that straight walled and tight cartridge. Still a 6mm bullet, which to me in the AR-15 platform is probably the better one. But it being shaped like this, if you notice, it's very similar to a 5.56, just a little bit fatter. Not as crazy as some of these other ones where there's this long neck type setup. And if I scroll down, we'll see here. Oh yeah, 350 Legend straight wall case. That is what I'm talking about right here. Reliability of the feeding. When you're talking about a battle type setup or something where you need to make sure it's working. It's one thing to lose a match. It's another thing to,
lose a gunfight.
Yeah, pretty much. And this is another area, and this is actually, that's what we forgot to bring up. What I don't like about 6.5 Grindle, it uses that Magnum bolt face, and that's where they take a lot of meat out of this area, as you can see, where you don't really want that.
I didn't even see that on my research. That's a whole nother level.
And that was why our 475s for our AR-10s don't have this. They use a 308 bolt face still, even though their huge round is mainly, when you're talking 70,000 psi type pressures and stuff like that, you want as much meat as you can have. That's what you want. So that was another thing. Overall lengthwise, it's a little bit longer, but it still fits. Now you have to use a 350 Legend magazine, not a 5.56. I've heard some people say you can use the 5.56 of certain ones, but you probably just want to use that 350 Legend. So that is an issue. You can't use the same mags, but I don't think any of these you actually can anyway. So that we were talking about this episode wise, but also this is another area. 6R, the 6.5 Grendel, you end up with this because of their big rear ends causing issues as you add ammo. But here you go. Straight wall, just like it should be. Like, it's very smooth, a lot better. There we go. That's what I wanted to get into. 58 grain VMAX. If you look at the barrel length, a 10.5 barrel length getting over 3,000 feet per second is not too often. And then you got all the way up to a 24-inch barrel. I mean, it's kind of looking like that is one area, though. You're not going to do a 10-inch build in this caliber, most likely.
No.
A lot of bullets, even the 5.56, once you reach out to that 18 area, it's not really benefiting you that much. I run into it all the time in the rimfire competition world. Is people will do like this 24, 26-inch barrel, and I could never figure out why, because you already burned all your powder by like inch 12. Like, there's nothing left. You're actually losing velocity at that point. I don't know if it's this case really. Even with 5.56, you're probably gaining a little bit, but it's kind of pointless at that point. With the 22, I know you are, but like with this one, it looks like you're all the way up to 24. When you're doing a DMR, you're trying to reach out 800 yards. So most likely, I am going to have a longer barrel. I'm going to have an 18-24, and we'll talk more in that area. This is, again, my personal opinion of a DMR build. It isn't even one of these ones that you see in front of me, but those are some crazy velocities. Here's a perfect example right here. The 6 arc right here, this is the exact same bullet that both of these are using. They're starting right at almost the same feet per second. And if you look at literally the same drop, same everything, but I get more ammo in my same size magazine as almost 5.56, you're going to get a little bit less, but I get to fit a lot more into that magazine without having this giant curve or anything else. And yet, same bullets, I'm getting the same types stats, even drop wise at 1,000 yards, only 11.5. Compare that to a 5.56, 16.4. Like, you're starting to move up quite a bit. This is a 108 grain on the 6 arc, and it's hardly a difference whatsoever. So it works out pretty well.
How many rounds are you fitting in a magazine on that 6 max?
I want to say it depends, of course, on your mag. I would have to look it up, but like, this is a 20-round mag that we're looking at right here, compared to the difference in length for the 6 arc 20 round.
Yeah.
Compared to the 350 Legend, and that's because they spread out the powder. They didn't put it all in that rear. But all right, now you can see us again. I'm running out of alcohol. I mean Coke.
Yeah.
Let's see here. So, looking at all these rounds, cost-wise, for example, the 5.56 is by far the cheapest. Most of these rounds, you're going to be paying a few dollars a round on some cases. It can be pretty pricey. I know the 6 arc, actually, it's not horrible. I want to say they're about $35 for 20, and pretty much all these rounds, the 6 max, I didn't look that one up. I probably should have, since that's the one I like. But they're all pretty close, actually. I want to say right around that 30 to 40 area, which is still pricey when you can buy 5.56 for what, 19 or actually 14?
Yeah,
$13.
Yeah, depending on what you get. I mean, there's stuff out there like the Hornady that's up there in price, but I mean, and the 224 Valk is kind of one of those that suffers from that greatly because it's pretty new and pretty not very available out there. So it's got a higher price point overall. And I mean, a couple of these Wildcat ones too, like the 6.5 Grendel and your 6 Max, and
I think the next one would be 6.5 Grendel is probably the easiest to get.
yeah, they're still a little bit more pricey than you get a 5.56 still.
Oh, yeah.
But,
Which, I mean, it's going to be no matter what. It'd be
yeah, you're
nice
talking about a round that's been
if it
around
was
since the
$20 for
1960s.
13 type thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's but use wise, I mean, 5.56 gets beat in the DMR, but let's
Yeah.
say this is my home or my truck gun or something like that. 5.56 could win very easily in that area. in my
Oh, yeah.
opinion. So
Right.
for the all arounder gun, I'll still build a 5.56 because
Absolutely.
I can find the ammo, I can train with it, practice, shoot it up, and not cry every time after I change magazines.
well, and especially from a defensive setting where you're going to need, to use a rifle like this, it's legally there's a better argument for using something in close quarters, and that's where your 5.56 is going to shine anyway, because you've got rounds available for training upon, whatever have you. There's so much availability for the 5.56. It still does very much shine, and there's absolutely an argument for an all-arounder gun in it, especially at that 200 to 300 range. But our limitations on this, we're kind of looking at something that could perform effectively out at that 400 to 800 yards consistently, and that's kind of where a lot of these other calibers really beat that out, even though that argument is still absolutely available to make.
Well, I mean, when you look at it, like what you're in a squad, you got the DMR, right? That's your job. You're the marksman. It's not you kicking in the door. It's you watching the windows. It's
Yep.
you watching the backs of the people going in. The
Yep.
people going in have not even this length because I don't want to pay a tax stamp. They're going to have, your standard, what is it? 14-inch barrel on most standard ones.
Typically running like 14 and a half.
Yeah.
Some of those high-speed cool guys love their 10 and a half inch barrels, but
Yeah.
I'm not one of them. Give me
That's
my
another
18.
subject. And once you go under that 14, give me a pistol.
Yeah.
Like caliber.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
I don't understand a 10-inch 5.56. Or you saw a 308 today.
Yeah.
It was like a 10-inch, and I'm like, that just you took away most of the reasons. And maybe there is a reason I'm not seeing, but I don't find it.
I can't talk too much shit because my 308 is
Yeah.
a 16-inch barrel. So
yeah, my 308's in the safe over here. So, barrel length. Let's go into the build side again.
Yeah.
Past calibers, and actually before we even go that far, everything we're talking about, if you know something different, like I said, everybody's got an opinion. Everybody knows certain facts. This is just us kind of throwing stuff out there in all reality. Let us know in those comments. And I will try my best to respond, or he might as well, type thing. And you're going to see a lot more of him on the channel since we work together and everything else. And he's getting into the building of these guns. In fact, we have some more Exodus. That zombie green. There's your hint. They're kind of cool. All right.
I'm excited for those ones. Those are going to be.
It's going to be fun.
Real fun.
Try to build those tomorrow, maybe. But barrel length on a DMR compared to a battle rifle is kind of what we were heading towards, anyways. There, so it's a good segue. Me personally, I'm not looking at it as that competition. I don't think the 24s, the 26s. I think the top length would be 20, and I might even stick to 18 area. I know I can get those better velocity, especially with my favorite one on here, the 6 Max. But do I need it when I'm only shooting 500 to 800 yards? That's kind of where I'm at.
No, and I actually ran into similar problems with my completely different build. It was a Remington 700 Pro build.
Yeah.
But that was where I ran into issues with my 6.5. Was I went way too long on that barrel length, and I was very young and didn't know.
What length do you have on that?
I'm pretty sure it's got like a 28-inch barrel with a 2-inch muzzle brake, so it's definitely not lacking for length on that gun.
That's a bull barrel. I think weighs a crap ton.
It does weigh a crap ton. It is not fun to pack out in the woods, but I'm young and dumb enough that weight isn't too much of a factor for me. But yeah, I actually think I'm losing some of the muzzle velocity on that barrel. It's way too long. And I think, typically from what I've experienced, that 18 to 22 inches is kind of really the Goldilocks zone for a lot of different calibers, especially in the rifle selection out there.
Especially nowadays with the ammo we have and everything else, all the components. Like, I mean, the AR platform has changed so much, and at the same time changed so little. But just the components themselves have just gotten better refined on how they work together and stuff like that. I honestly, I'd probably stick with the 18. 20 wouldn't bug me, but I also want to save that weight because I got to keep up with the guys carrying the light stuff.
That's true. Yeah.
So, I mean, granted, me saying that now when I'm out of shape and a lot older is a lot different, but.
Well, yeah, that is one thing, but it all comes down to, that weight plays a huge factor. And, as young and in shape as I like to pretend to be.
Well, compared to me, you are.
But you running around with, something that's about 8 to 12 pounds, which is typically what's reasonable for, one of these, especially in a duty setting, that's, you've got a little bit of an edge on me running around with my 20-pound gun. So there is that to keep in mind too. And that's why I think you do get a lot of that Goldilocks zone in that 18 to 22 inch range, because you get the best performance out of your calibers typically. And there are some odd ones out there. And some of our viewers might actually have some points to make in the comments that completely put me off. And I'm not one who's going to be afraid to admit when I'm wrong on something, because I'm no expert. I just eat crayons entirely. So
sorry, I was wanting to. Apparently my TV, there it goes. I was trying to turn it down. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure because I'm getting some errors here, and looks like we did have some people.
What's in the glass?
Gee,
what's in the box?
I wonder who mentioned that one. Ice. Since we're late on answering any comments that people put out there, just throwing that out there. So I just wanted to pull up our feed as well, because I realized that if you were making comments, we probably can't answer you, and that would be a good place to put anything that we're currently talking about. Just throw in the comments, and we'll try to answer you as we're talking here. So we went with barrel length. We're kind of in agreement in that area. But do you have the rounds to look at to compare the size difference? No. Again, we're going to go back into, it's not the easiest to get it. We actually have some of these rounds on order right now because we did want to get them in stock, and I've got to do some convincing to the boss that maybe we should build one or two of these for SHOT Show. Quick little shout out on that one. I am going to be at SHOT Show again, but this year I'm doing the role of also interviewing people and kind of doing that. So I want to throw that out as I'm thinking about it. We'll talk more. You're going to see some really cool things. I've made some friends over the few years, and we'll see where they can take me to. We'll go from there. So barrel length. Now this is kind of an area I struggle with. It kind of goes with the barrel length when I was talking about weight, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't want it so heavy that you can't keep up with everybody else. And unless you're, Hulk and a marathon runner,
Captain America,
you have to be a little bit careful. So let's talk about what type of barrel.
Ooh.
Because like harmonics, everything else, you're trying to make these long shots, so you got to worry about the harmonic side of it. And the bull barrels tend to do a lot better in that area. Hence why every competition rifle out there has this barrel that weighs as much as a small child, it seems like.
Yeah.
Even in my Roomfire world, some of these guns, it goes into 26-inch. And when I say bull barrel, I thought I knew what a bull barrel was. I probably shouldn't keep doing that type signal. But some of these barrels are freaking huge. Oh, yeah. I did mark not kid-friendly, right, when I did this?
I'm pretty sure.
All right. But then there's also carbon fiber, and you see that a lot with certain barrels. Christensen Arms.
Yeah.
Huge known for the carbon fiber and being very accurate.
Those guys are local too, aren't they?
Yep, they are an Idaho company. So shout out to them before I say anything that I have also heard. But And for me, a standard barrel like what you're seeing in front of you, you guys probably can't actually really tell. Maybe the zombie green one, but they're more of a standard barrel. I wouldn't call a pin barrel, but they're pushing that line. Especially mine. I think hers is a little bit bigger, but it's a
Insert joke here.
yes. Anyways, I kind of like an 18-inch. Maybe there, like we do have a competition barrel that is very bull barrel to about right here to where the gas block is, and this I have a very short gas block. She has the longer one on there, but it's about right here, and then it goes into more your standard. So it kind of pushes your weight back a little bit. Um, I kind of like that concept because I wouldn't want to do full bore bowl because man, that's a lot of weight out in front of you, and if you have to do a quick shot or something like that,
Especially if
it's
you're
gonna slow you
engaging at,
down.
differing ranges too.
Constant. Well,
'Cause-
as a DMR, that's you have to engage. You
Yeah.
have to turn a corner and shoot that guy running towards you at like 800 yards.
yeah,
Like it's kind of. So I don't know. I don't think I'd want to do bowl. Semi bowl, maybe a semi bowl because that's going to be a little bit farther out, a little bit more straight shot. You're probably going to have a bigger type gas block set up or 9.7s and.
well, and with
And
semi
then
bowl,
some
if I'm not
5.75.
mistaken, a lot of your weight's sitting kind of right up in this area too. So when
It
you've
is
got
bigger
your
back there, yeah.
when you've got your handguard sitting up here, your hand can handle a lot of that weight. As far as that goes, it does balance out. So I think maybe semi bowl would probably be one of the better options.
But then there's the carbon fiber. What's the wrong with carbon fiber? Reliability tests. I watched a video. Granted, watching videos. I've never done a stress test because I can't afford a carbon fiber barrel.
No.
But carbon fiber barrel reliability side, I think they're better now. I haven't heard about them separating because they are basically a barrel, a very pin barrel, like even skinnier than that. It's basically a sleeve of steel wrapped in carbon fiber. So the weight side is great. Like you could pull that up, but at the same time, when you're taking those long shots, you want the stability of that weight too.
Well, and again, correct me if I'm mistaken, because I'm not Grand Thumb and I don't have that kind of money to throw around. But when they go ahead and they do that carbon fiber wrapping, they are taking a lot off of that barrel.
They are.
And longevity wise, that it could actually create some issues too if you're looking for something that you're going to stake your life on, and end of the world situation if it ever happens. Not fear mongering or anything of that nature, but you no longer have the resources that you did prior to the bad times.
Day marksman rifle, by the way. Throwing that out in the comments there. What does DMR stand for?
He's messing with us, I see.
Yeah, he is.
But yeah, for that kind of setup, you want to be able to depend on it for a long time, especially if you're investing this kind of money into something, because typically any one of these guns is going to run you, anywhere from $800 to well over $2,400, depending the pieces and parts that you're using.
Mm-hmm.
Like my setup currently has an EOTech setup on there, and that
you have the most expensive pistol I've ever seen.
Yeah, and it the entire optic system is more than what I paid for the gun. So those
I've got that cost me $300. We sell them at the store. I mean, it's got the Bishop name on it. But now, like Arkin, speaking of that, we'll get into scopes actually in a little bit. But so cost is a huge one on the carbon fiber. But you're right. What about, like, we live here in Idaho? We get above 100 during the summer, and we're below 0 during the winter. We have pretty much the worst of both weather.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
Spring and fall. I don't know what those really are because I know the leaves change color.
I
but
think it lasts for like maybe a couple weeks, but if you blink here in Idaho, you miss it.
Like we'll have a blizzard and then I'll get a sunburn the next day. It's annoying. So carbon fiber in that sense, because of what it is, I do wonder about separation. Like if you left this, it's one thing, you're not going to leave your guns out when you're hunting overnight, out, all of that kind of stuff, because you worry about rust and everything. But at the same time, end of the world, you're not sitting where we're sitting now.
No.
I mean, especially I'm not doing a live video. So you're out in the trees in that weather all the time. And with those changes, constantly temperature changes, because like I said, you can go from a sunburn right into freezing weather
Hypothermia within an hour.
day, actually. Um,
Definitely seen snowstorms come out of nowhere in June.
you know, and that goes into coating. Like if you notice, both of these are Cerakoted at least. I'd probably, no matter what, I mean, that goes into harmonics too, which that was something I've researched on the 22 side, is these bright color, like they look awesome, stainless steel barrels and everything else. Coating them helps with the harmonics. It kind of gets, imagine, like if you've ever seen a ballpoint pen under a microscope, for example, that little ball that seems so smooth to you, when you look at it under a microscope, that is a jagged knife edge type looking thing that what we think is smooth. A barrel is the same way. No matter how smooth and polished you think that is, you're going to have that. And a Cerakote actually kind of gets into those and helps smooth those harmonics. So I would Cerakote, especially if I'm building something for me, because I look at it always the tactical, side. If it's my personal goes in that safe and it's not for competition, it's going to be Cerakoted something. As we're staring at a zombie green Cerakote, but. It's a little darker zombie green, not as bright as our current Exodus that we're building.
That's going to be interesting.
But that, I mean, it's something to look at as well. I think we're kind of on the same page. I'd rather have tried and true stainless steel Cerakoted. That way, even if the Cerakote gets scratched or beat up, because it will, if I own it, it's going to. The stainless steel kind of helps fight and mitigate a lot of those rust issues. So survival wise, especially since I don't have much money, if I'm putting the money into it, it better last me. But at the same time, I'm going to beat it up.
Oh, yeah.
Don't worry about an AR. You can fix it.
Clear my chest here. Apparently, I've got mucus in my throat.
I have a feeling we're going to be on the same page on this one as well. Muzzle brake, flash hider, or suppressor. So flash hider, that's your basic. It kind of hides your position a little bit better, things of that nature. You don't have to bright flash at the end. It doesn't really reduce recoil. It does maybe a little bit, but nothing depending on the flash hider. It's really not doing much other than that. It's hiding your flash.
Yeah.
Tactical situation, that's kind of important.
Absolutely. I tend to lean a little bit more towards the suppressors just because you do get a little bit more capability out of your cartridge.
I had a feeling we were going to agree on that. That's why I didn't mention that one quite
solidly yet. But you know, there is definitely an argument for the flash hider or even the muzzle brake itself in a lot of situations too. You know, DMR, you're not really getting into a lot of defensive situations to where, the muzzle brake is as justified because, you're still going to get a lot of that flash off of that muzzle with just your muzzle brake. And in a situation to where you're employing a DMR in a bad setup, typically that's something you're going to want to avoid, just like the stainless steel style barrel, because chances are in that scenario, you've got somebody who's looking for you and is probably going to try to fire back at you. And if you give them any kind of data to pinpoint your position, well, now you've just given them a target to shoot at.
Exactly.
And that's where your muzzle brake might not
shine. I'll do an argument towards the muzzle brake. Follow-up shots.
Follow-up shots are amazing on that. And, in a bump in the night situation, they're great too, because, this is kind of the idea that I employ in my own personal bump in the night gun is, Buddy and all of his friends are coming in. I want his friends to think that there's a freaking fire-breathing dragon in that house.
Actually, with this muzzle brake, I don't know if you guys can actually see the one I have on here, even compared to the one next to it. It's huge.
Yeah, I want something that's going to scare away all of your friends. They're going to be like, oh my God, what is that?
That actually happened at the range the first time I took it out, because I got sent this muzzle brake to test out for a company. And when I was at the range, there were some people I've actually built some guns for. They've known me at the store, and they walked up thinking, because they could hear me shooting something, and they thought it was a huge gun, but they're staring at what I'm shooting, which is this right here. And they walked up to me asking what in the hell caliber I put into that, because it's a small gun shooting like, it sounds like a 50 and they're on the other side of the range type thing. And that's because of that break. It was so loud under, because you have the tin roof and it echoes everything. And so it sounded like a 50, but it literally felt like a 22. Like it did not move hardly at all. I'm not sure if I even really did a video showing that part, but maybe I will one of these times, kind of the difference. Now, the one on the wife's gun here is a much smaller. It's a micro triple D, great muzzle brake, and reverse thread on it. So really easy to time, put on there, throw it on there. It does an excellent job as well. I will say the Bowden does a little bit more of a brake. 4-port overkill by far. You don't need that many. 3-port works fine. It's just that it's got bigger ports and a straighter wall that it's hitting to stop it. So there is the bonus, like you said, scared the living crap out of whoever's coming in. The only issue I have with it, it is a back blast, which means if you're not wearing hearing protection, which I don't know about you, I don't sleep with it.
No, I don't.
I'm going to be
are,
ringing as much as they are.
Yeah.
If not more.
I mean, you know, somebody kicks in my door in the middle of the night, chances are they're going to see me running around the corner with a friggin' tomahawk and an SMG in my silkies. So, you know, might be an interesting sight for all this.
Don't break into your house.
No, don't. That's a lot of white you don't want to see.
So now we'll go into, which I think we both agree on. I will do one caveat to it, is the suppressor. I don't know a situation in all reality where I wouldn't use a suppressor other than maybe competitive rimfire shooting. And this is where my caveat comes in, is because make sure you're shooting and practicing with your suppressor. Your point of aim does change.
Yeah.
That is something I've noticed with suppressors. We're about to have some starting getting made locally, actually. So it's going to be here in Southeast Idaho. And we're going to go into that route here soon. I'm excited to test that one out because I have no issues going out to test the suppressor. But I will also, maybe I'll do that as a video as well with something like this. Brake on here, and then I'll put a suppressor on right afterwards, and we'll test to see, after I'm zeroed with that brake, do I get a point of aim change that is so dramatic that you can't trust it. But a suppressor hides your position, hides the flash, helps with recoil management some, not as dramatic, of course, but it does help some. Like all around, I still don't understand the fear of suppressors, probably thanks to John Wick, so thank you out there for that one. Where
Damn
they're
it,
walking through a
Reeves.
subway shooting probably 22s at each other and nobody notices. Yeah, that been around a lot of suppressors, you're gonna notice. So it's not like Hollywood, but at the same time, your ears aren't ringing. If you're a hunter, use a suppressor if you're legally able to. Just I can't count how many stories and things I've been told about. I don't hunt myself. You do. Maybe you can add to this, is how many times that one hunter will walk right up to another hunter and not even realize they're there. Like they're just right. Your whole point of hunting is to be sneaky. Like, but you could be walking up and not realize that 10 yards to your side or something like that, somebody just takes their shot at something you've been tracking, and your ears, everything, not only do you have to change your pants probably, but you're hurt and you just blew out your ears because you weren't expecting a shot. Where, I mean, overseas where they don't even like guns, they literally give you suppressors like they're nothing because it's being polite also.
Yeah.
Like you got houses nearby, things like that. Out in the boonies, you still got cabins, you got people out there. Be nice. And you're not scaring an animal that you don't see 500 yards out of the way. Now you're not scaring them.
And I mean, it's even a nice benefit for yourself because just taking that initial shot. Like I don't hunt with any kind of hearing protection, and I probably ought to, but that's just my way of hunting. You know, I go out there and I'm trying to hear as much as possible, and I don't use it because chances are, with my luck as it's been, I'm probably not taking a shot anyway. But you know, even in those situations where I have, you know, you still get a little bit of that ringing kickback, and you know, it's not anything that's going to do, you know, severe permanent damage over a long period of time. It's not like you're going out to the range and just unloading a full mag with, you know, a muzzle brake especially. But you know, that's another one of those situations where it's hard to argue against the factor of having a suppressor, because even, on the ballistic side, you are getting a little bit of improvement out of that round's performance. Pretty much across the board. I think there might be a few that it does draw back, but
it adds to your velocity. So I'll have to look into that. Don't quote me on that, but I wanted to say it can actually add a little bit.
If not to your overall accuracy.
Yeah. And so there's huge benefits to the suppressor area. Plus, stick it to the man a little bit on that.
Yeah.
They don't want you to have them, so buy 5. Just throw that out there. So we're going over an hour now, so we're going to kind of speed it up a little bit. All right, we're doing a build. Handguard wise, I mean, it just depends on your barrel length. I don't know if we really need to go into it. Like, these are 2 different types of handguards. This is more of your heavyweight. That's your lightweight. Both are good. I don't know. They're so easy to change out anyways. Try them all. We'll make that quick and simple. But an area I do actually want to hit on, your butt stocks. Now, both of these have the adjustables. They are 2 different ones. This is, I believe, a Magpul. I think that's a Luth AR. Okay. I'm trying to remember. I built both of them. You think I would know this, but I deal with so many freaking guns. I forget what I put on what. What would you do on a DMR? Would you do just a simple adjustable stock like one of these? I mean, I guess it depends which will be the next subject, is the scope side or optics side. But like, I have a good idea of what I would do on my DMR, because I still want it to be maneuverable and easy to move around. But I like the adjustability of having like a cheek rise or something along those lines, that because that kind of goes into what optic you pick and everything else, but a folding precision type stock. Like, I don't know of a setup where I wouldn't want a folding stock, and I don't even own one. Just for the packability side, if I do need to go around a corner, we're not talking about these huge calibers. I could shoot that one round I have in there. Granted, I'm going to rack it again because it will just shoot that one round if it's loaded. But if I turn a corner and somebody scares the snot out of me, I might need to. Again, I guess we're hunting deer, so maybe that won't happen. Not talking about much more than that. So I like the idea of the folding stock, collapsible. Even if I'm carrying it on my back or something like that, and maybe I have a different setup I'm using to clear those corners around trees. You never know when that rabbit will jump out at you.
Hunting rabbits.
Yeah. But I mean, there is a benefit to the adjustable stock. You can shorten it for those corners and fold it as well. But I think
you do lose a little bit of accuracy with any folding parts. So I mean,
that comfort side behind that optic.
But I definitely would argue for at least an adjustable stock. And we did see this on our 458 SOCOM build that we did. We did have that big high-end DMR style setup stock on there. And we noticed how unwieldy it was. And I don't want to say it was off balance, but it did feel kind of off balanced with just a simple stock replacement. I
love that stock though. The adjustability and everything was amazing. Like, every angle was covered, but man, it weighed a lot.
I think both of those stocks were UTG also.
No, the other one was another company.
Or was that one of our Luth AR ones?
Was it DTG? So it wasn't UTG. But you're talking about the heavy one that we had that literally could adjust everything. And actually, you could adjust it back and forth this way. Now I can't remember the name of the company. That sucks. But yeah, that thing, you could do angles even on the cheek piece and angles on the rear. And like, that was great. But yeah, it weighed a crap ton. That was the only problem.
We swapped that one out for something probably a little bit more comparable to what you got on your setup over here. And, just watching the difference between that, even though it didn't have that adjustability to where, you could pick your cheek weld and all of those extra fancy features, it did help the maneuverability of the gun. And especially with that caliber that we're using, that's only a 200 to 300 yard gun anyway.
Oh, yeah.
But watching how much, just that little replacement piece made a difference was pretty phenomenal. So
it is a very important thing. Like, it's not just because it feels comfortable.
Yeah.
If you're comfortable behind it, you're going to shoot better too.
Oh yeah.
So that's something I've always struggled with, because I'm a tall guy and no rifles really fit that well. And in the 22 side, that's where I've been practicing my precision side. I noticed that I was adjusting myself. For example, actually, I'll grab it right here. And I love this stock, but not that I have guns just everywhere, but like this is the @1 stock, right? You have adjustable cheek piece, adjustable length of pull. My son was using this one. The problem is with even the length of pull all the way out, it's too short for me. So it only goes out to like here. And when I'm on a bench, you're kind of leaning forward. Next thing I know, my face is into the scope. So I'm having, what I ended up doing is just adjusting myself, and that was so the wrong answer. I get behind my Vigara that I have, that I'm shooting now, a lot longer pull, length of pull side, a lot better comfort side. And it's like instantly, as soon as I sat behind, I'm like, okay, good. And I start shooting, I'm like, oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like, don't be afraid to mess with your stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it 100% comes down to shooter's preference on a lot of these parts, especially getting into parts, pieces, even scopes. Just because everybody's built and shaped differently, the things that are going to work amazingly for me might not work for you. And we're not that different in height.
How
Probably,
tall are you?
I'm like 6'2", so we're
So
probably
we're almost
talking about
exact same.
a couple inches difference maybe.
Yeah. Granted, I do have monkey arms. Just saying.
And I got not monkey arms, but I got these long ass spindly fingers that make
That's
it
another
interesting,
thing is-
and that's where I play with pistol grips a little bit, differently.
That was one thing I noticed with this, because same company sent me this as well to test. The only issue I've had with it is the M-lock does loosen, as you can hear it.
Oh yeah.
But changing how I grip, because when my first deployment, somebody taught me, and I know it was wrong, but it kind of made sense. It makes sense some. It actually became comfortable for me. Clearing corners is I would hold here, and maybe we shouldn't get into too far into that stuff. But we're talking about comfort side. I started using this thing, and it changed a lot of how I feel. Like you'll see me in videos where I'm just shooting for fun. I automatically grab here because I got so used to trying to clear that corner, and by keeping it close like that, if somebody does grab my barrel, I just felt like I had more control. And the truth is, I probably really don't. But I don't know. That's going to be a whole nother subject.
Yeah, you're diving
So,
into things.
what stock would you have? DMR build, because I said I would have a folding precision style.
This is where I kind of get a little bit weird because I'm not picky. It's
Neither am I in all reality, but I can understand that. Because I mean,
it's a hard one.
This
really
I will admit I like this Magpul style, the wider. Not only is this storage here, but the cheek filling on it compared to like one like that, especially that flat top. But some of them are so pokey, almost like there's such a tip right here that you can feel that on your bone. And when you're getting into a prone position or behind a barricade and resting, if you're sitting there for a while, you really start to feel it.
Oh yeah, and that's probably where I would shy a little bit more away from this style setup, because it definitely is flat and comfortable on everything on the top. But some of these different pieces here, I might shy away from. I don't even honestly know because what's sitting on my rifle, I think, is a Magpul. Yeah. But what I did with that was like, oh yeah, good stock. Oh, and went a little bit jarhead with that, I guess. Didn't pay much
the
attention.
The Magpul furniture on here is about the only thing that's left is the pistol grip, and it's turned into a Frankenstein because this handguard's all new, the muzzle brake, the bipod, the optic, not what I started with at all. None of it was actually what I started with.
See, and some guys run from that Magpul stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, Magpul's too cheap, and got to use this specific brand.
Too cheap. I've seen cheaper.
Yeah, I have too. But that is a reality in the gun community where you've always got somebody who's got an opinion on why you shouldn't do this one thing, and I think I've got a Magpul stock on there, and I like it.
We'll have to check it out. Maybe one of these times we'll do a show off time of just different guns. Yours costs way more than mine. I probably have more. That's the difference, I guess.
Yeah, I have like 5. Yeah, but they're all pretty pricey.
One of yours costs as much as like 2 or 3 of mine on some of them. All right, so we're going to end this with, in all reality, is one of the most important parts other than caliber, your optic.
Yeah.
Like right here, I have an LPVO. I wouldn't go with the red dot. Obviously, we're talking 500 to 800 yards. You're going something different. LPVO kind of, I struggle because an LPVO could probably do the job.
Mm-hmm.
But if I am the DMR, I think I would want, because you're not kicking in the doors as much as we've talked about back and forth on that. We have talked about, hey, if I had to, can I?
Yeah, absolutely.
Truth be told, if you know your weapon, and even with that scope, kind of like video games where you no scope them, like you just pull up, you shoot, right?
Point of aim shooting.
Point of aim shooting. Yep. I would probably, and see, I really struggle. I've gotten so used to 5 to 25s because of my rimfire side. I love LPVOs because my eyesight isn't what it used to be, and red dots just aren't cutting it anymore. But I'd probably stick with the 4 to 16 area because I don't have the eyesight I used to. Normally, I'd probably say even just a 3x9 would do you fine. But I'd probably stick right around, still within that hunting style scopes, but like a good 4 to 16 area would probably do me well.
And I think the LPVO that I'm actually running on my DMR, the actual rifle that I'm using for that, is a 308, but it is a 2 to 9 power scope, and that's an LPVO, and that one does really well. It's a very long eye relief setup, and I don't know how effective it might be at those super long range. I haven't really stretched my legs with that gun, particularly in the configuration it is. But I as much as I love LPVOs too, with the modern day industry, there's still plenty of holographics out there that'll get the job done. Like I was talking about with my EOTech earlier.
Would you be able to shoot the 5 to 800 yard area though?
I think so. With my 3 power on there,
it'd be close to 3 to 8. Like you're a wide range on a DMR setup.
Yeah, I think with the 3 power that I've got set up on there, I could probably push out to 500 or 600 yards. It is pushing it with my eyesight. It's gotten worse as I've advanced into my late 20s. I say that like I'm super old, but I have noticed some of those drawbacks are starting to be prevalent to where I do need reading glasses and things like that. But I still feel like, especially with some of the 4-time magnification that's out there. I mean, that was what I qualified in boot camp with, was a 4 times Trijicon ACOG. Okay. To all you jarheads out there, rah. But we were able to push out to 500 yards pretty effectively, and that scope does run 800 yards, and there's plenty of stories out there about it. So it's kind of, again, that's one of those shooter's preference things, but you're not going to get the performance out of it that you would with, like an LPVO, or even, looking at some of our Arkin scopes or Night Force have you. I'm not a big fan of the eye relief on the Night Force as much, but
they're great scopes.
Everybody loves them.
Yeah, but I'm in the same boat. I don't like the eye relief. I feel like I'm struggling constantly to find it.
I don't know,
it's a very short window to get it.
In a competition setting, that scope is phenomenal, but in a really rough environment, I don't know that I would want that one as much as maybe like one of those Arkins or a Vortex or
million and one make really good ones. I mean I like the Arkin just because I'm cheaper, but yet I'm getting what feels to be, and so far from what I'm seeing and hearing about and researching, just the same quality as I spent $700, you spent $2,000, and I'll shoot the exact same, if not better.
Yeah, and you might actually have a little.
We worked with them last SHOT Show, and they gave us some scopes, and every single scope that we have, their LPVO is amazing. It's awesome. Like and it's only $360 or something like that. Like, it makes me feel cheap when I buy something like that, but yet, holy crap, they're good.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and I have yet to have anybody talk about reliability issues. Vortex, I've heard a lot lately.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a great warranty. They're awesome. I know and this is going to be hate, but,
might be sparking some flames.
They have a great warranty, but you're going to use it. It's kind of becoming more the gist, and that sucks for them because they're such a great company overall. But in all reality, even if I had 2 to 3 grand or whatever amount of money to spend on an optic, I'm still going to pick the Arkin. Why?
Yeah.
Because why would I spend more than what my rifle cost me when I get the same ability? Now they are heavy compared to a lot of these others, so there is that. If you're trying to build that ultra lightweight, even their lightweight series is kind of pushing on weight.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, hell, we could do a whole episode just on scopes in all reality.
Oh,
So
yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't want to ruin, because we are an hour and 20 minutes in, so this went a lot longer than I was expecting. So I think, unless you got something more you want to add.
I think that's a good closing point. I mean,
Okay.
it does come down to, and that.
I mean, there's always the oddball. Like, I mean, we could do a whole thing on it, bipods and
Oh, yeah.
stuff like that. Like, I've got Harris bipods on both of these. Why? Because for the price, they're a decent one.
We didn't even touch on triggers or
No,
any of that.
that's a whole. Should you do a competition one when you're shooting those longer ranges? So we're gonna have to probably end it here, just for that reason of we're going far into the weeds, and who knows, maybe we'll do a part 2 and we'll just talk about add-ons and leave it at that, and we can go more in depth on scopes, and if one of these times we could do it in the store or something like that, we'd be good to go. But from here, what I would like from all you guys, especially anybody sticking around and stuff like that, add your comments. Tell us where we're wrong as well, because that's the whole point of this, is to expand that community. I will not say I am the expert on every aspect of ballistics and everything else. This is all stuff I'm learning. Yeah, I have an associate's from SDI, which is where that whole sticker comes from. But you learn as you go, and it's crazy. Hi, dog. How much is out there, and there's certain people out there, they know this area compared to this area compared to that area. I'm a very general gunsmith, and same with you. I mean, you're in training right now in that area, so my hound came to visit. That's your sign that we got to go. So please do comment. We'll try to respond. Thank you, Jesse, for throwing out a few comments in there. And I'm interested to see in the next few days of what comments we get. And who knows, we'll do a part 2. Maybe we'll answer some of the comments in that.
Yeah.
But again, thank you for watching. I know this went long. I'll try to shorten them up in the future. But this was episode 1. So many more to come every Wednesday, 6:30. And like I said before, make sure go check out Bishop's with an S through Bishop. So bishopsgunbarn.com. You can order all kinds of things, and that helps us out, helps our sponsor. We will have some more future sponsors here coming in the works. So it's going to get fun. We're just getting started. It's a new channel. Yeah, I'm excited to see where we go from here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on here.
Oh, it was awesome. It would be a lot better than me talking to myself the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
So, all right. Hey, thank you again for watching. We'll see you next Wednesday. Hopefully we'll have some more videos in between as well. We should. We're doing some builds tomorrow. But yeah, you guys have a good one.
Thanks for having me on here.
Oh, it was awesome. It would be a lot better than me talking to myself.